Tonight on Reporting Scotland, a spending watchdog highlights the case of a police chief given tens of thousands of pounds in relocation expenses. Political leaders here welcome the deal allowing Brexit talks to move to the next phase. Snow in the wake of Storm Caroline leaves dozens of schools unable to open. The Rangers caretaker manager wants the job permanently, but he doubts he'll get it.
Helen McPhee, are you thinking of doing a day's washing?
No, Miss.
And best remembered for creating Miss Jean Brodie, author Dame Muriel Spark is celebrated in her home city. Good evening. A Deputy Chief Constable at Police Scotland has received £67,000 in relocation expenses in the past 3 years, according to the public spending watchdog Audit Scotland. The officer, Rose Fitzpatrick, has also had £53,000 in tax paid for her by the body overseeing the National Force. The new chair of this body, the Scottish Police Authority, says she accepts it's not lived up to the public's expectations. Our Home Affairs correspondent, Rival Alderson, reports.
It's the biggest ever parade of new police recruits. At the Scottish Police College, 222 officers finish their training, ready to take up their duties. But as they're inspected, the police service as a whole remains under close scrutiny, with the publication of 2 critical reports. The first comes from the public spending watchdog Audit Scotland. It's identified a series of governance failings at the Scottish Police Authority, the body which oversees the National Force. And it says appointments of key staff didn't demonstrate value for money. The appointments were made to address financial weakness at the SPA. The report also highlights payments made to Deputy Chief Constable Rose Fitzpatrick, Scotland's most senior female officer. In the past 3 years, she's received £67,000 in relocation expenses, and the SPA has met her tax liabilities totalling a further £53,000. The Auditor-General says it was important to highlight these problems so the SPA can improve the way it operates.
We're talking about around £120,000 in total for relocation expenses, and I'd stress that it's the process I'm concerned about, and around £300,000 for the temporary staff appointments. They are significant amounts of public money, but it's much more important that the SPA can demonstrate effective and transparent governance in future.
It's her first week in the job, but the new chair of the SPA has welcomed the report and promised change.
I think it's very important to stress that the individuals who have received payments have done absolutely nothing wrong. What the Audit Scotland report has shown is that the way in which these decisions were taken could have and should have been dealt with better. So again, there is a lesson to learn here about how such matters are handled in the future.
Among the officers passing out at Tullyallen were 8 from British Transport Police. That's being merged into Police Scotland in 16 months. But a report from the police watchdog says the government failed to develop a detailed business case for the merger. The Justice Secretary says it's already been addressed.
What's happened since the report that we're discussing today was actually commissioned is that a significant amount of detailed work has already now been carried out by the Joint Programme Board, setting out a whole range of measures that have been taken forward to make sure that integration is taken forward into Police Scotland in an appropriate and in a coordinated fashion.
At the end of a period of unprecedented turbulence for the Scottish Police Service, these 2 reports provide a stark reminder of the continuing problems it faces, both financial and political. Rival Alderson reporting Scotland, the Scottish Police College.
Political leaders in Scotland have welcomed the deal, which allows Brexit talks to move to the next phase. But the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, said the agreement had only been achieved as a result of total capitulation by the Prime Minister. That was dismissed by the Conservatives, who said the outcome was good news for all. This from our political editor, Brian Taylor.
Nowhere near the end of Brexit, but perhaps the end of the beginning. A deal on reciprocal rights for UK and EU citizens, a price tag of up to £39 billion for the UK, and crucially, an outline settlement for Northern Ireland.
In doing so, we will continue to preserve the constitutional and economic integrity of the United Kingdom.
Theresa May's efforts were praised by the European Commission. The First Minister is less impressed, arguing that the UK has given ground and stumped up cash just to keep talks going.
Total capitulation.
Details for the Northern Ireland border with the South will have to await further negotiations. The First Minister reckons that could still give the Democratic Unionist Party a key role.
It seems to me, reading it, that the can has just been kicked down the road, that all options have really been kept open for the moment. There certainly continues to be the prospect of some kind of special arrangements being put in place for Northern Ireland. And my position on that is, if that's the case for Northern Ireland, it has to be available for Scotland as well, because if we find ourselves outside the single market but Northern Ireland somehow has preferential relationships with the single market, we would find ourselves in a doubly disadvantaged position.
But the Scottish Tory leader says it's good news all round.
We've managed to get a deal which not only keeps the borders open between Northern Ireland and Ireland, no return to the borders of the past, which is so important, but that also we've said that we're not leaving one part of the United Kingdom behind, and what's good enough for Northern Ireland is good enough for Scotland, England and Wales too. That's important for Scotland because we know that the UK internal market is worth more in terms of trade to Scotland, 4 times more in fact than our trade to the EU. So moving forward as one United Kingdom was absolutely in Scotland's interests.
Scottish and UK ministers have been in talks over powers returning from Brussels, but Scottish ministers will now demand a role in the wider negotiations. Brian Taylor, reporting Scotland.
More than 30 firefighters have been tackling a large fire at a primary school in Fife. More than 200 pupils were evacuated from Cairney Hill School in Dunfermline and moved to a local church. No one was hurt. Local residents are being advised to keep their windows closed. Wintry weather is continuing to batter parts of Scotland. Hundreds of homes had no power overnight in the wake of Storm Caroline. Most were restored today, but some in Orkney and Shetland are still affected. Today, heavy snow in the north led to school closures and difficult driving conditions. Rebecca Curran reports.
Finally coming into berth. This ferry from Scrabster was due to dock in Stromness yesterday, but Storm Caroline's high winds meant passengers had to spend the night on board.
We've been looked after very well, actually. Couldn't have asked for more. The staff and the crew were amazing.
It was meant to be appearing in the Stromness Drama Club pantomime last night, Jack and the Beanstalk, but it was not meant to be.
After the storm, the snow. It might look picture perfect, but the freezing weather and difficult driving conditions led to the closure of many schools in the Highlands. Hundreds of homes in the North and Northern Isles were without power overnight. All pupils in Orkney and Shetland stayed at home today. Problems with snow and ice on roads in Aberdeenshire led to significant disruption.
This is one of more than 50 schools closed across Aberdeenshire today. Thousands of pupils in the north have been given an unexpected day off as the wintry weather begins to bite.
Closing the school is really our last resort. There's a presumption to keeping the schools open. It has a big impact on learning for the children, but it has an impact also on the wider community. But we have to be absolutely clear, the safety of the pupils and the staff are our main priority there.
The wintry weather caused a headache for some, but not others. These children had big plans for their snow day.
I think we're going to make a snowman. Yeah, I think and we're going sledding right now.
Like, there's so much snow outside and we get to slide down the slide.
The Met Office has warned people to plan ahead for snow and ice across much of Scotland tomorrow. Rebecca Curran, reporting Scotland, Aberdeenshire.
Drivers often feel aggrieved at having to stump up hefty fines to car park operators for what they see as a minor infringement or a simple oversight. Now, one MSP who's been inundated with complaints is calling for an independent panel where drivers could appeal a fine. Andrew Anderson reports.
Not one of the joys of motoring, searching for a parking space in one of Scotland's city centres. Back in June, David Carson used a privately operated car park in Perth. How did the problem arise?
The problem arose because I had put in one extra letter into my number plate.
For that mistake, he's facing a charge of up to £160.
First of all, I'm being treated in a very unjust manner. There was nothing deliberate on my part trying to defraud the parking company in any way whatsoever. I feel sore that they should be doing this.
David's one of a number of motorists who feel they've been unfairly treated by the operator of this car park. Despite numerous complaints in the last few years, though, it was busy today. Smart Parking, who operate this car park, say the system here is in use in thousands of other car parks around the world, and they say most of their customers don't have a problem with it. Smart Parking says it operates to the highest standards and abides by the industry's guidelines. MSP Murdo Fraser met with a number of aggrieved motorists today. He's bringing forward a bill which would give drivers like these across Scotland access to an independent adjudicator, a move supported by private car park operators.
The problem is there are too many people being caught at the moment who haven't broken reasonable rules, who are getting unfair penalties and are being asked to pay up to £160 for a minor infringement. I don't think that's fair, and that's why I think the law has to change.
As for David Carson, he says he won't be paying his fine or using this car park again. Andrew Anderson, reporting Scotland, Perth.
It may not have won its bid to become UK City of Culture in 2021, but Paisley reckons it's on a winning streak all the same. Organisers say that despite the title being awarded to Coventry, many of their plans will still go ahead, including a multi-million-pound investment in the town centre. Our arts correspondent Pauline McLean reports.
It was the end of a dream. Plans for a year-long celebration shattered in minutes when the title was awarded not to Paisley, but to Coventry. But the heartbreak was tempered with pride in what this place has achieved. And by the end of the evening, they were sending out a message that this wasn't the end, but just the beginning.
Everybody should be really, really proud of what has achieved. The bidding process has been such a good process. We've been able to tell the world what makes Paisley special. The momentum and the energy here will continue.
Many of the plans Paisley had for its regeneration through culture will continue anyway, with over £100 million pledged to rebuilding the town centre.
£42 million in our museum, 22 in Paisley Town Hall. We're committed to this development. It would have been lovely if we'd had the sort of boost in income from the bid that meant we could turbo boost that and add to it, but we're doing it anyway.
And the benefits of simply bidding are already being felt. Visitor numbers are up by 25%. Paisley has put itself on the map.
There's a huge amount of disappointment here today, but there's also a huge amount of pride in this place for coming so far. From Mumbai Airport, which has a Paisley patterned carpet, to Mull because of the mod, Paisley now is about culture. And having made Scotland proud, now they have to build on that. Pauline McLean, reporting Scotland, Paisley.
You're watching BBC Reporting Scotland. It's 18 minutes to 7. A reminder of tonight's top story. A spending watchdog highlights the case of a police chief given tens of thousands of pounds in relocation expenses. And still to come, a complex operation at the new hospital in Dumfries and Galloway as patients and equipment are transferred. Crimes involving hunting with dogs have more than doubled. The report into wildlife crime in Scotland reveals that 44 unlawful acts were recorded last year compared with 20 the previous year. Most of them relate to hare coursing and fox hunting. But overall, wildlife crime is falling, as our rural affairs correspondent Kevin Keane reports.
Hare coursing, a growing problem for Scotland's countryside. This video, filmed in England, shows the barbaric nature of this illegal activity. And yet, in the last year, the number of crimes involving hunting with dogs has increased significantly, the largest share of them in the northeast.
So they can see the dogs and they can see the hares.
Overall, though, wildlife crime is down 8%, with 261 incidents reported last year. The Environment Secretary touring this animal rescue centre near Stirling welcomes the fall but says there's work to be done.
We are doing quite a lot at government level to try and bear down on that. And that includes, for example, the the partnership with Police Scotland to introduce special constables, particularly in the Cairngorm area.
The most common wildlife crime remains poaching from rivers, with 75 incidents reported last year. But conviction rates are their lowest in years. This case, involving a bird being shot, was dropped by prosecutors because this footage was deemed inadmissible in court.
I mean, it's an absolute disgrace. It still goes on in this day and age. I mean, it's very encouraging that the figures have dropped by 8%, but that's only the recorded crime. That's not the likes of the untagged or the tagged eagles that have disappeared, which were never found, so they don't actually take part of these numbers.
With reviews into fox hunting, grouse shooting and moorland management, there's much scrutiny on the countryside, but the progress to date is being welcomed across the divide. Kevin Keane reporting Scotland.
The new Dumfries and Galloway Royal Infirmary has opened its doors. This morning, a 3-day process to transfer thousands of pieces of equipment and more than 250 patients got underway. Willie Johnson reports.
All week, all round the clock, removal vans have been shifting the contents of the old hospital to its replacement 3 miles away on the outskirts of Dumfries. Today, the task of transferring the patients got underway, one by one in a fleet of ambulances all weekend. It's a tense time for those involved.
It's the biggest thing that the NHS board has ever undertaken. We're moving 260-ish patients, some of whom are very seriously ill, between the two sites. We're moving about 10,000 pieces of kit over the next 3 days, and everything has to work exactly as planned.
The new hospital serves a population of 150,000, from Stranraer in the west to Langham in the east. It has 8 wards and 8 operating theatres, as well as a day surgery unit, intensive care and high dependency areas, and maternity. The 344 beds are all in single ensuite rooms, a big change for nursing staff used to more traditional wards.
Obviously, it's a new build, it's a new hospital, it's a new environment, and I think initially, yes, there probably were some apprehensions, but now that staff have been there, they've had their orientation, they've had a look around, overwhelmingly it's excitement now.
We're very much looking forward to welcoming our patients and our staff into the new facility, and for us to be able to continue to provide the highest possible standards of care in a 21st century environment.
The new A&E department was first to go live at 8 o'clock this morning. The rest of the hospital is now gradually filling up, and if all goes to plan, it should be fully functioning by Monday. Willie Johnston, reporting Scotland, Dumfries.
The man in temporary charge of the Rangers team says he'll take the manager's job if it's offered, but doesn't think he'll get it. Graham Murty has been looking after things since Pedro Caixinha was sacked 6 weeks ago. And with Rangers missing out on Aberdeen's Derek McInnes, Murty will remain interim manager till at least the new year. More from our sport reporter, David Curry.
Plenty of arrivals today at Ibrox, if only at the club shop. Still no welcome, though, for a new manager. It doesn't seem to bother these young fans. As for older ones,
everyone must be looking at us, wondering what's going on, and a lot of the fans are thinking that too.
Even when we approach managers that we really want, who was one of our own, let's be honest, and he's now said he didn't want to come, is there something behind the scenes that he knew that we didn't as well? There's always that to consider.
Rangers' preferred candidate, Derek McInnes, ended weeks of speculation by nailing his colours to the Aberdeen mast, prompting this public riposte from Rangers. We were made aware by Aberdeen's statement that, at this stage in his career, it would be best for him to remain in his current post. We endorse that position because moving to a massive club like Rangers is a big step with concomitant risk. We will only appoint someone in whom we have full confidence and who feels he is ready for the job.
To say that Derek McInnes was our number one target, but then to say that he probably wasn't quite right, it's full of contradictions for me. Nobody's really sure what's going on in the background at Rangers, and I'm not even sure they're sure of how to take things forward themselves.
In the short term, Graham Murty will take things forward till the new year at least. Rangers have won 4 of their 6 matches with him as interim manager, but he doesn't consider himself a serious contender.
I think it would amaze you the amount of potential candidates who are out there, managers who are not working, managers who are even in work who would still take that job. But I think Rangers have to go about it with a bit more dignity, a bit more class,
6 weeks and 1 day since sacking Pedro Caixinha, and Rangers still don't have a new permanent manager. The longer the search for one continues, the more questions Rangers supporters will have for the club's board. David Curry, reporting Scotland, Ibrox.
So Derek McInnes remains at Aberdeen, but after the saga of the last fortnight, how will he be received by the club's fans? Well, we might find out tonight at Dens Park, where Aberdeen play Dundee in the Premiership. Our senior football reporter Chris McLaughlin is there.
I think it's safe to say the majority of the Aberdeen fans who will fill this stand here this evening thought there was little to no chance that Derek McInnes would be in the away dugout this evening. What a turnaround in the past 24 hours. Joining me to discuss it, the Aberdeen legend Willie Miller. Willie, are you surprised?
Yeah, I must say I am, yeah. It looked as though Derek was certainly considering the move, and the noises coming from Ibrox seemed to suggest that the deal was almost done. But I must say that I'm more than pleased that he's decided to stay at Aberdeen.
Some of the Aberdeen fans, I think, had resigned themselves to the fact he was going. What kind of reaction do you expect him to get tonight?
Well, I think he'll get a very good reaction, which may be a little bit surprising on the back of 2 defeats by Rangers, which seem to have been forgotten. But the fact that he's here for the long term, he's a manager that they respect hugely. He's brought success to the club, he's brought a trophy to the club, the first one in 20 years. So I think he'll get a very warm reception.
Willie, thank you very much indeed. A huge shot in the arm for Aberdeen. We will be hoping to speak to Derek McInnes on BBC Radio Scotland shortly. Sportsound has the game live. Kick-off is 7:45.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Miss Jean Brodie, one of Scotland's most famous literary characters. Next year marks the centenary of the birth of her creator, Dame Muriel Spark. A special exhibition's opened in Edinburgh, the first in a series of celebrations of her extraordinary life on and off the page. Aileen Clark reports.
Remember, you are a child, Sandy, and far from your prime.
Maggie Smith as Miss Jean Brodie, the Edinburgh teacher who was always in her prime. This most passionate educator of girls was created by Muriel Spark in these pages of jotters bought from James Thinn's bookshop in Edinburgh, and they're now at the centre of this exhibition in the National Library of Scotland. Her writing has attracted some notable fans.
Our books are kind of like TARDISes. They're much bigger on the inside than they are on the outside. I mean, a book like Miss Jean Brodie is 100 and odd pages. The entire text was published in one issue of The New Yorker. It's a tiny book, and yet it contains multitudes. It contains comedy and tragedy and farce. It contains extraordinary characters, complex moral dilemmas.
The exhibition takes you on a journey through the places she made her home after leaving Edinburgh. Africa, London, New York and Rome. There's even dresses and handbags, which hint at a glamorous life away from the typewriter.
Obviously her writing style is just impeccable and utterly unique and brilliant, but she was also interested in style as well, in terms of art, in terms of design, in terms of fashion as well.
She had a very particular style when it came to pens, as she explained herself.
And if by accident somebody picks up one of these pens, to write a telephone number or write something, I think, and then puts it down again, I notice that and I throw that pen out of the window. I don't want to touch it for my book anymore.
Muriel Spark's work was the basis for a PhD that Ian Rankin started in the 1980s, before Rebus rather took over. And he treasures the day he met her at the Edinburgh Book Festival just a couple of years before she died.
2 big shopping bags full of her first editions with me, but she was a wee bit tired. I don't think she was in the best of health at that time, so I just plucked at Miss Jean Brodie and asked her if she would sign that for me. And luckily for me, there was a photographer there who got a picture of us together, me looking like a complete fanboy.
Monday marks another World War I anniversary. 800 years since the British marched into Jerusalem and captured it from the Ottoman Turks. Scots soldiers played a key role in the campaign. We've been following descendants of those men as they traced their footsteps in Israel. Here's Andrew Kerr.
The forgotten conflict. Jerusalem was a key target for the Allies during the First World War. The British advance up through Palestine still has an impact on the politics of Israel today. It's been said the British capture of Jerusalem was one of the few successes during the protracted and arduous First World War. But the cost of that success is all too evident. From the graves of the little-known soldiers to the key battlefield sites where Scots fought and died, I'll be hearing the stories of their descendants. Find out more on Monday's Reporting Scotland at 6:30 here on BBC One Scotland.
Well, the country's had quite a battering from the weather in the last couple of days. What can we expect from the weekend?
More wintry weather to come, but some crisp sunshine as well. So a bit of a mixture to continue for the rest of tonight and for tomorrow. Further snow showers are on the cards, and we do have wintry scenes sent in from our weather watchers. This scene sent in from Aviemore, where we've had up to 9 centimetres of snowfall accumulating. That's 3.5 inches across Tulloch Bridge in the Highlands, as well at 12 centimetres here. And we'll continue to see further frequent snow showers brought in on those cold Arctic winds. Now, the snow showers have mainly been across the north and across the west, and it has still been windy today, especially across the Northern Isles and the northeast. But we'll find the winds slowly starting to ease elsewhere tomorrow. But for tonight, we still have these Met Office yellow be aware weather warnings for the risk of further snow showers and icy stretches on untreated roads and surfaces. Treacherous conditions, especially over the higher road routes, with blizzard-like conditions with the wind still blowing in the northeast. So those showers most frequent across the north, some along the west coast into Dumfries and Galloway as well. But plenty of clearer skies elsewhere across the central belt, the southeast, and temperatures widely dip below freezing, maybe as low as -6 or -7 Celsius in shelter for the Highlands. So a cold, frosty start to the weekend, and we have those showers continuing across the north and across the west as well. Some decent spells of sunshine elsewhere, but bitterly cold. So if you're heading out around 3 o'clock, temperatures struggling to get up to maybe 1 to 3 Celsius at best, maybe 4 Celsius along the west coast. Those showers more as rain at this point, but still some snow showers across the very far north, and still quite windy too for the Northern Isles along the northeast coast. So if you're planning to head to the hills and mountains tomorrow, it will be very cold at summit level. We're looking at sub-zero temperatures and frequent snow showers, especially for Coolin, for Skye. Some of these showers heavy at times. Some light showers further towards more of the southern hills for Galloway here. And further towards the east, well, the Cairngorm, some heavy snow at times, some poor visibility, and temperatures down to -8 Celsius. The best of any drier weather likely across the border hills. Now, looking ahead, a very cold night to come tomorrow night too. A widespread frost, temperatures well below freezing, another bitter cold night. And looking ahead to Sunday, well, it starts off dry, and we are looking at this area of low pressure moving in from the Atlantic. Now, this is likely to bring some significant snowfall for northern England and for Wales. At the moment, it looks like we will be largely dry with this snow towards the south of us. But the chance of any snow will be likely across Dumfries and Galloway and the southern borders later in the day. And that's your forecast for now.
Thanks very much, Corsa. And that's Reporting Scotland. I'll be back with the headlines at 8 and the late bulletin just after the 10 o'clock news. Until then, from everyone in the team, have a very good evening. Bye-bye.